Okay, so we're going to get started. So I've got my eager next presenter sitting in front of me, Agustin Botta. He's head of EMEA for dLocal. And he's going to be talking about the APM edge, local payments driving e-commerce growth in emerging markets. Huge opportunity in emerging markets, massive, and I'm sure he's going to talk us through what's fueling that surge as well. So over to you. The floor's open for you, Agustin. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hope you're belly full now for the deck. Let's wait for the presentation being over. Okay, Agustin, my name. I'm Uruguayan from dLocal, based here in London. Gonna cover very briefly because we have only 10 minutes. So what? I'm gonna move here. Just feel like a prisoner there. What dLocal does, then we'll get to see why the emerging market is a massive opportunity, mainly for e-commerce, retailers, but most of the industries. And then we're going to interact between those demographic stats and all the alternative payment methods that, as I'm going to show you, is the norm, typically in emerging markets, and a couple of takeaways. So dLocal, what we do, we are a PSP that we do local payments in emerging markets. When I say emerging markets, typically I'm referring to LATAM, Africa, and Southeast Asia. We cover 46 markets, more than 47 now. So how we do it under a merchant of record model, that we have our local entities everywhere where we are in. We connect directly with all the acquirers, all the APMs, no matter if it's a wallet, mobile money, banks, or any other instant payment method down there. While we are on emerging markets, I'm going to show you after, but all our energy, all our focus, all our investments go into emerging market because we believe there is the future where real potential customers are going to be there. Okay, this sum up how we move money around. We connect 5.5 billion potential consumers or customers with companies as yourselves. Why now? Why now is the moment in emerging markets? We have been observing a trend over the past years. We were founded in 2016. But the amount of potential users to be untapped in emerging market is like crazy in comparison. If you look at the north, like the US, here, Europe, typically our merchants will base here in Europe. But the consumers and actually the potential in order to actually boost those revenues in the next 10 years will become from emerging markets, of course, because birth rates are decreasing dramatically here in Europe. And of course, in emerging markets, in some of the regions like Africa or Southeast Asia, are skyrocketing. If you think that 85% of the potential consumers today are in emerging markets, that will start thinking, okay, how in the future I should make my strategy to go into emerging markets. By 2027, it would depend on how you consider someone young, but 9 out of 10 will be considered young. The average age for 2027 in emerging market will be 33 years. I'm 39. I still feel young, but they'll be 33. And then I think what is most interesting, there's going to be a very big migration from low class in emerging markets. When I say low class, I'm talking about spending power, to middle class. So approximately 354 million people will be migrating from a low class to a spending class, actually getting goods and so on. And not only the big cities, but also e-commerce is like spreading over second-tier cities. And the checkout is going to be primarily on mobiles. If you spend time in Africa or Southeast Asia, many people are getting like their first smartphone, and they're already doing transactions through them, not really on the web, not really on the laptop. So everything's going through there. If you go in Instagram or any social media, you go to Australia, you buy there. I'm sure many of you have advertised over there. So how we start interacting those demographic stats with the payment methods and how typically these people pay over there. So we have Nigeria. By 2100, they will double the population, being the fourth biggest nation in terms of population. There are people typically pay beside cards or local scheme like Verve. They will use Paga. They will use ePay. Then you have Brazil. that currently they have 215 million users. More than half of the population use Pix. I'm sure that everyone here in the room is familiar with Pix, but if not, it's an instant payment method that is completely Skyping the graph. You have a QR, you have a Pix key, you can pay everywhere. I can send money to a friend, I can pay for gasoline, I can pay groceries, wherever. Colombia, one out of 3 payments are done through bank transfer. Now Brevi is coming in. It has been developed by the central bank. Same as Pix, they do interoperable instant bank transfer intra-banks. Pakistan, 255 million people, and only 34% of people are there on a bank. You might ask, okay, where is the other 66%? Alternative payment methods. Easy Paisa, very popular wallet there. It has 55 million users registered. And here is what I'm talking about, to be very conscious of what's the potential there. As of now, if we think of LATAM, 47% of the payments are done through alternative payment methods, so no cards, whatever is not cards. In Africa, in West Africa, more than 60% is done through mobile money. Mobile money, you don't need internet, it's just with your network. You can pay everywhere with a code. And if you go to APAC, of course, like numbers are crazy. Everyone has a wallet. So the average, like in Indonesia, is 3.16 wallets per person. So I will have between 3 and 4 wallets, typically. So 69% in Asia, they do the transactions through APMs. So what we see now that how demographics are growing, how population is coming, how the young population, the youth, are fueling the adoption to pay with alternative payment methods. So you need to have all these alternative payment methods, at least if you're doing a strategy of going local and say, okay, I want to have a strategy, I go there. So if you want to stick with the cars, probably not the best way. Which are the 4 reasons for these alternative payment methods to keep ramping up over the next 10 years? So first is adoption by the youth, as I was saying. If you go to the case of Philippines, 82% of people use GCash versus only 56% on bank transfers. Infrastructure, so the central banks are building the race for this to happen. So it's not just, okay, it would be nice to have this in the future. So actually, many of them are making mandatory for banks to interconnect with payment methods like Pix, like we'll see later in South Africa and Egypt with InstaPay and PayShap. Behavior, we are seeing a lot of behaviors like in Southeast Asia, all the gamers, they tend up to top up their wallets with alternative payment methods. Mexico, of course, if you don't have a local setup and you don't have installments, you'll be missing out many of the high tickets revenue that companies would like to capture there. And regulation also comes when Vietnam was a very cash-based country in the past, so now they're aiming to have less than 10% of the payments through cash. Brevi we covered already. And here's a very good example when we say, okay, why we need the alternative payment methods, because actually it's the norm, it's the typical behavior on different cultures or how people are used to it, but also that drives revenue as well. This is a leading delivery food company that is merchant of us, that they implement Shape last year. Shape is a wallet that has around 16 million users, and population of Peru is 32, 31, so almost half of the population use this wallet. It was developed by BCP, a private bank. So what we found out, that 20% of the transactions from the first 6 months were done by new users, so actually new users coming into the platform and paying with Shape. 28% were reactive users who originally, they do a transaction in the past, but then when Shape comes, they say, okay, doing 61 migrating from credit cards to this wallet. 18 of those 61% switched from cash to wallet, and 18 were moving from cards to Shape. This is the conversion rate, 98.3%. Of course, those probably not having funds in the account. Great thing, no chargebacks here. Refunds will be instant, quite real time. And here we have a map of all the instant payment methods through banks transfers that they are connecting. All of those are the countries and the instant payment methods that are connecting all the local banks into one payment method. So if you are like launching any of those, that's must to have. Here's a bit of history. So from these 4 APMs that I picked for this presentation, the first one was launched in Nigeria. So NIPS is an instant pay method through bank transfer. After you surpass a certain threshold, you go through a different race. And all of these started on P2P, InstaPay on Egypt and PayShap on South Africa. They don't have yet opened their API for eCommerce, but yes, you can do through P2P. I'm going to go a bit fast. All these APMs are tokenizable, so all the data is encrypted, and also, most importantly, whenever you pay, and let's say you have a card on board or you have money on your available balance, and you're approaching, and let's say you don't have money on your balance, you will accept the transaction, take out from your credit card, or the opposite. So that's a great feature that these ones have. Okay, I have no time. QRs, so cash is disappearing. Central banks, what they are doing, they are making sure that all QRs are interoperable between them. So you can pay with any of the wallets or the instant payments that you have in that country, and you can pay with a QR, no matter in which industry you are, no matter in which store you are. Also in the web, you can even download a QR. So for taking some conclusions here, it's very important to have a localized checkout with local currency, making sure it matches the behaviors and how the consumers in that country are used to. Could be subscriptions, but mainly to make sure that you cover what those individuals are used to pay. So just to summarize takeaways, sorry for extending, make sure you are looking after this massive opportunity on emerging markets. It's quite clear. The trust starts always at the checkout if possible consumers who see those payment methods. And early adoption will drive conversion and loyalty. Thank you so much. Sorry, I went very quick, but I just want to share this with you.
That was very good, thank you. You're staying, aren't you, for this next panel?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
take a seat, and we'll